Get into position.
Welcome to the Time to Talk Special Edition. My name is Jonathan Williamson, and I'm glad to have you with us today. Today, we've got to talk about something that's going on in the world right now. I haven't made it a habit of making special editions, reacting to the news or to the things that we see, and honestly, I've still been praying for the time to bring to y'all a full discussion, a full eschatological discussion of the signs of the times and knowing what it's going to be like before the Lord returns and what it's going to be like after He returns. The time for that is coming, but in light of the events of this past weekend, since we were already here in the studio, I wanted to take the time to show you what this could very well mean for us, for the world as a whole. You see, I was up all through the night last night trying to put together how I want to share this, because we're going to talk about Israel. We're going to talk about Jerusalem. We're going to talk about what God said was going to take place in the final days, but there's so much more that is happening at the exact same time concurrently with these events in Israel that are all pointing to the same thing. And as I was digging in and trying to put together a presentation to bring before you to try and determine what it was to share to you, it was just flooding forth all of this fulfilled prophecy, all which the Bible said is going to be taking place in the final days, and seeing it all come together. And then this with Israel, it set me back, it saturated me. And so I'm going to try and keep this conversation focused in on Israel and this reeling around Israel that the Bible said was going to come. And then pray for the right time that coming soon, we'll sit down and it'll be probably a 3, 4, 5-part series. There's a lot of information on it, but we're going to dive deeper into the depths of what the final times are truly going to look like. For today, we're here to talk about Israel, who we are praying for. This conflict in Israel, I mentioned this reeling around Jerusalem. What was it that I meant by that? Well, we can read in Zechariah, the 12th chapter, verse 1 through 3, the burden of the word of the Lord concerning Israel. Thus declares the Lord, who stretches out the heavens, lays the foundation of the earth, and forms the spirit of man who is within him. God, who created all things and created us and put spirit within us. This is what he declares over Israel. Behold, I am going to make Jerusalem a cup that causes reeling to all of the people around. And when the siege is against Jerusalem, it will also be against Judah. It will come about in a day that I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who lift it will be severely injured, and all the nations of the earth will be gathered against it. Not some, all. Israel is the epicenter of the earth when it comes to God. That is His chosen people and His chosen land. And because of that, and because of God's favor upon His people and His dealings with them, things that have happened in the Middle East, things that have happened in Israel, have always had direct correlation to what is happening in the rest of the world. But this part right here, Jerusalem will be a heavy stone for the peoples. All who lift it will be severely injured, and all the nations of the earth will be gathered against it. Even the allies of Israel are going to have consequences from what is taking place. They are going to feel the impacts of what is happening right in this moment. As they try to lift up and to support Israel, they are going to injure themselves and be hurt by the weight of this stone, the magnitude of what is to take place around God's chosen people and land, and all of the nations will be gathered against it. So I want to point at a few groups right now that are currently actively engaged militarily against Israel. We have Hezbollah, which are Shiite Muslims in Lebanon with Iranian backing. Right there north of Israel. And they've been at war with Israel for quite some time. You have Hamas, who, if you didn't know about them before, I guarantee you everybody knows who they are now. They're Sunni Muslims in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, and in the West Bank, again, with Iranian backing. And then you've got the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, who has been in active warfare and engaged with Israel, which are Sunni Muslims in the West Bank and Gaza, again with whose backing? Iranian backing. Why is it important talking about all of them having the same sponsors and those three different groups? We're going to get to it in a little bit, but I want you to notice one of those are Shia Muslims and the other two are Sunni Muslims. I'll let you know why that's important here shortly. So, why is it that we're here? Why is the whole world right now talking about this conflict of Hamas and Israel? Well, to answer that, we've got to look at what happened just 4 days ago on October 7th. Now, if you've been watching the news, you probably have a decent idea of what happened. So I'm not going to give you a full rundown. But in summary, over 900 Israeli men, women, and children were killed. I was reading this morning that death tolls up to 1,200. Entire families were tied up and executed in their homes, men, women, and children of all ages. 2,150 people were injured, 150 hostages were taken from different nationalities around the world, and there were indiscriminate killings and beheadings. Reports are that they found babies slaughtered in their cribs. 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old children bound, executed, and bathed in blood. Men and women beheaded, decapitated, their heads removed in their own homelands. And there was no warning. There was no heads up. This was a surprise attack, well coordinated and planned, in which they infiltrated in 22 different places with thousands of rockets fired as well, indiscriminately spraying and killing people, walking up on a music festival and shooting down 260 people, anyone who was within range or reach of their firearms. This is the attack that started this reeling. And so, what happened? What happened after this? Because one might expect, oh my Lord, that's terrible. That's awful. Oh, we need to support, we need to rally with Israel. Well, if you look at the regional reactions, there's been a spirit of solidarity swelling within Islam for the Palestinians. I've got a list of countries here in Lebanon, in Egypt, in Iraq, in the UAE, and the other Arab Gulf nations that were in the process of normalizing relations through the Abraham Accords with Israel, of Bahrain, Tunisia, Syria, Turkey, Iran, Jordan, Sudan, Afghanistan, Yemen, Pakistan, and many more. There have been displays of solidarity, rallies together, people handing out sweets in the streets and celebrating this attack of Hamas on Israel. And I'm not just talking about small groups of people or small sects of the population. We're talking government buildings in some of these capital nations covered in the Palestinian flag. We're talking about some of the largest social gatherings and structures, such as in Egypt with the soccer matches, everybody chanting, "Victory unto Palestine, death unto Israel," people celebrating this terrorist attack. And again, I'm not trying to get political in this by any means, but anytime you were killing babies in the cribs, and there is a widespread, not only vote of approval, but people saying if we had been there, if we had known, if we had been available, we would have taken up arms with them and helped them in the attack. But as it is, at least we can support them from here. That is the spirit that is welling up within all of these nations. All of these. And not even just in these nations, but even in the allied nations of Israel. These are more government-sponsored and backed, even though some of them, kind of somewhat quietly try to put it down. Some of them refuse to actually dismiss the attack or to condemn the attack. But even here in the U.S. and in the U.K. and in Paris, there have been gatherings in the streets of New York and Chicago and some of our biggest cities in the U.S. saying to hell with Israel, to end the alliance with Israel, after they just got hit by this attack, this incomprehensible, unimaginable attack. There is a spirit moving around the world of solidarity, and it is aimed directly at Israel. So why is that important? Why does it matter? Israel's been hated. This conflict has existed forever. People around the world, other than certain U.S. allies and Western allies, people have been setting themselves against Israel since its foundation. Well, it's important because of what God's word says. First, it has become a real thing. And when taken in conjunction with a lot of other prophecies, can a nation be born in a day? Yes, Israel was back in 48. There were surprise attacks before back in 73, but nothing ever to this magnitude. But today is different. The size, the ferocity of this attack, but more than that, the reaction of the world to the attack is what is different. So why do I say it's important? Psalms 83, 3-5. They make shrewd plans against your people and conspire together against your treasured ones, Israel, God's chosen people. They have said, "Come and let us wipe them out as a nation, that the name of Israel be remembered no more. For they have conspired together with one mind. Against you they make a covenant, that the name of Israel be remembered no more." The director of the military wing of Hamas has come out after this attack, raising up the call to any and all Muslims to hear, saying now is the time to join with us to attack Israel. Warning those who've been normalizing relationships with them, saying if they can't even defend themselves, they can't defend you. But more than that, join with us that we might what? Wipe Israel from existence, is what he said. Not just attack them, destroy, decimate, till there is nothing left. He has sent out the call. And so against you they make a covenant. Who? The tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites and Moab and the Hagrites, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, Philistia, with inhabitants of Tyre. Assyria also has joined with them. They have become a help to the children of Lot. Okay, well, who are all those people? Don't worry, I did some of the work for you. So translating all of those groups to people to where they currently exist in modern day countries or regions. The tents of Edom are the Palestinians. The Ishmaelites are all of the Arab nations. The Moabs are in central Jordan. The Hagrites are in northeast Jordan. Gebal is in Lebanon. Ammon is northern Jordan. Amalek is south Jordan and also into the Sinai Peninsula. Philistia is actually in the Gaza Strip. Inhabitants of Tyre, again in Lebanon. Assyria is southeastern Turkey, all the way up north, northwestern Syria and northeastern Iraq. And children of Lot are in Ammon and Edom, which are the children of Lot, are there in Jordan, but also kind of up north in that southern Turkey area. Okay, well, I failed geography, so where's all of that? I do not own rights to this map. I'll put it in the link where you can find it. But this is a list, modern day list, and a map of where all of those people are. So you can see where Israel is, right there in the center. You see Philistia, that is the Gaza Strip. Amalek, the Hagrites, which are the Hagrites, down towards the south and into Egypt. The Ishmaelites and Edom, right there on the edge of Jordan and into Saudi Arabia. Moab, Ammon, and Jordan. Assyria, up there towards the north. And then you don't see it on here, but the children of Lot, up there again in southern Turkey and in Lebanon. So Israel is completely surrounded. There is a reeling, and all of those people, and all of these nations listed, all of these nations on this map, you'll notice they were in my list from earlier. In all of these nations, there are major demonstrations taking place right now in support of the attack that Hamas initiated against Israel. So this prophecy is very close to being set. It's not quite there yet, but there is the opportunity. There is rallying support. But again, like I said, it's not there yet. Yes, it is a brutal attack. And yes, it is incomprehensible to think that people would actually be supporting this. And before we go forward, I do want to say, Israel's dealings with the Palestinian people haven't necessarily helped their case. They've given a lot of munition. I am in support of Israel. I'm praying for Israel. That does not mean I necessarily agree with every decision they've ever made with their neighbors. Okay? It They are God's chosen people, and I was called to pray for them, and I will continue to. But read your Bible. Israelis make mistakes. The Jews they are stubborn and obstinate people. But they've given ammunition, which had to take place because it was spoken of by God and in the prophets and in the Bible anyways. But they have, through their own actions, created munitions that can be used to rally a spirit of resistance in all of those nations that are surrounding them. Through somewhat brutal tactics in the past, if they get pushed, they push back twice as hard. They prove a point and kind of go a little biblical in times in their enforcement of their word. Well, what I foresee is about to happen is that very thing. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, these are 3 quotes directly from him. Israel's response will change the Middle East. What we will do to our enemies in the coming days will reverberate with them for generations. Our response will be unprecedented, unlike anything they have ever experienced. And I believe him when he says he is going to be doing this. I believe him that he is going to try and set an example that no one else would ever dare to cross Israel again. And even more than that, he's got to try and save face through this anyways. His leadership has already been in contestation. He's already been in contention. He's already had issues within the government anyways. And now he's allowed this attack, which some reports, unverified, are saying there might have been some warnings that came from Egypt beforehand. He is going to absolutely try and establish and set a precedent in this time to save face and to save his country. He is a military-minded man. He is a soldier and a warrior. So what he is about to do, and as he's stating this, I believe that he is going to come with the wrath of God, fury, fire, and vengeance, and try and pour it out upon these people. Thus far, his response has been to mobilize 300,000 reservists in the Israeli Defense Forces. There have been constant barrages of airstrikes and rocket fire on key buildings and infrastructure there in Gaza. They're already planning their ground mobilization, but then the most important part that I want to harp on here, and I've got to hurry because I'm going to run out of time quickly, is they have ordered a complete siege of Gaza, of the Gaza Strip. That's power, gas, food, medicine, and water. Now, the Gaza Strip, and if you look back, well, I don't have a map close enough to blow it up, but Israel controls the waters on one side and controls 2 of the main borders of the Gaza Strip. Egypt, since Hamas has taken over, control one small border along theirs, but they've had it barricaded since Hamas has actually taken power in the early 2000s. So you're talking about a land of people that are already very much constrained and over which 80% already depend on humanitarian aid for survival. But now this is a place, let's go into it. Gaza is the 3rd most densely populated region in the world, okay? There are over 2 million people living in less than 140 square miles, and an estimated 99.8% of them are Sunni Muslims. These are people who are descendants of the generations of those that were displaced when Israel was established. They've got mixed feelings, not mixed feelings, they're actually pretty clear. They've got very volatile and violent feelings towards Israel, as it is already. But these are people that have been suffering. Because again, 2 million people, and it's a very young population. When they were early on in the 60s and 70s, the women were averaging almost 8 children per woman. Now that's lowered down, but that in the early 2000s gave them an average population of, I want to say it was almost 40%, was 14 or under at one point. It's a very young population, a lot of children. So now you've got this small area, almost completely controlled by Israel, surrounded by Israel, of 2 million people, not all of which are involved militarily against Israel, even though, to be fair, Palestinians, since they've been there, they do all fairly well declare the destruction and end of Israel, something they seek for. But again, you've got 2 million, you've got 2 million innocent people, the majority of which, who are about to be affected by Israel's response as they start pouring, and already are, Buildings are falling and collapsing. I was reading today that the last power plant has run out of fuel. Hospitals have no power. Everyday people are being affected in ways that it's going to turn into what? A humanitarian crisis. Is what it's going to be. Western powers are already, we stand by Israel, but Israel, be careful. Be careful just in case. Be careful, because again, what's going to happen as Israel is causing what the world is already condemning as a humanitarian crisis? They've already said that they've caused one there before all this anyways, but this attack is going to be a catalyst in which they have to up the ante and up their game and really go in on Hamas. Problem is, Hamas is fully embedded and surrounded basically by human shields of innocent people who are just trying to live their daily lives. Okay? So to get to Hamas, you got to get through the people. And Israel, from what I'm reading and what I'm supposing is about to happen, are more than willing to do that. Rightly or wrongly, they do value life, but they are very strong, staunch, sometimes obstinate. They're stubborn people, but they're going to prove their point. And since they've been removed once and reestablished, they are going to take any threat against their existence with every bit of seriousness and every bit of calculated response that they can. So what's going to happen? This feeling is going to grow. This controversy is going to grow. There is going to be greater tension. The casualty counts are going to grow higher. Videos and pictures of young people under debris of buildings that are collapsing, people caught in hail of gunfire as the ground forces begin to move in and start to actively seek out Hamas. Reports of residential complexes coming down, hospitals coming down, not necessarily intentionally on the part of Israel, but let's face it, you fire that many missiles and that many rockets into that densely populated of an area where you have no free space, there is going to be a lot of civilian casualties. This war is going to get ugly, and this revived spirit of resistance within Islam across the world, as people are already coming for all support and aid and alliances with Israel to be stopped, to be shut down, to be cut out, as it is already creating this spirit of animosity towards Israel, or it was already there. It's augmenting. It's increasing this spirit of animosity against Israel. So as all of this is taking place and these stories start coming out, well, then all of a sudden, this world is going to start more and more joining in and building in the animosity. And you're going to start uniting peoples that have never been united before in a common purpose. As I mentioned earlier, between Hezbollah and Hamas, you've got Sunni and Shia Muslims who have fought amongst themselves in the past, working together for what? For the destruction of their common enemy. Okay? This is Israel. You've got a unifying, rallying factor, and you've got the leader of Hamas calling all of his brothers to set aside their differences and to unite and rally under this banner. Well, as that happens in all of those nations that are Islamic nations surrounding Israel, all of a sudden, you've got what we read in Psalm 83. You've got a covenant, a pact, an alliance made against Israel. And Israel will be completely surrounded and backed into a corner. And the West can only defend them so much. I mean, as pressure starts building on their allies, and even the U.S., I mean, we've got the greatest Navy in the world. It's the largest. We've got one of the greatest militaries in the world. And we do stand by our beliefs and stand by our allies, but we're going to buckle. We're going to give in because there's only so much pressure that we can take. And they're going to push Israel to compromise. They're going to push Israel to make a deal, to back off, to calm down, and for the sake of peace, they're going to be leaning on Israel, and Israel will have no other allies. I'm going to run out of time fast. This one's going to run a little long, but please stick with me. Because God gave Israel a very specific warning, and as you can see, Israel's going to get backed into a corner. All of a sudden, all of the guns of the Middle East, and not just those nations that we mentioned in that list earlier. But like I said, there have been public demonstrations in all of the Arab nations, in Tunisia and Sudan, all the way up into Turkey. I mean, greater than just the surrounding area, the whole area. And as this tension's building, you've got Russia who's supporting Iran because they're helping them in Ukraine, and Iran supporting all of these militant groups attacking Israel. You've got the U.S. supporting Ukraine against Russia, which tensions are already high, and the U.S. supporting Israel against these. So you've got two major superpowers growing in tension and conflict with one another. Eventually, they're going to have a powder keg set in the Middle East where the entire world is going to see we are about to have a major global conflict kick off from what is taking place between Israel and the Muslims. And so they're going to be backed into a position where all of a sudden they've got no choice but to what? Try and negotiate. Well, God warned Israel about this. In Exodus 23:31, I will fix your boundary from the Red Sea to the Sea of the Philistines and from the wilderness to the river Euphrates, for I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and you will drive them out before you. Israel was established through the driving out of the inhabitants. You shall make no covenant with them or your God or their gods. That's pretty clear. But again, Exodus 34:12, watch yourself that you make no covenant with the inhabitants of the land into which you are going, or it will become a snare in your midst. One of the reasons the Palestinians hate Israel so much is because they say that Israel robbed them of their land. In Isaiah 28:15, because you have said, we have made a covenant with death and with Sheol, and we have made a pact. This overwhelming scourge will not reach us when it passes by. For we have made falsehood our refuge, and we have concealed ourselves with deception. In Isaiah 28:18, your covenant with death will be annulled, and your agreement with Sheol will not stand. When the overflowing scourge passes through, then you will be trampled down by it. Okay, so this is where I've got to give you a little background information. I've got to start talking a little bit faster. All right, we just read they were instructed never to make a covenant with the people and the inhabitants of the land, never to make a covenant with the people surrounding them. God told them that it would be a snare under which they would cause their own demise. And there we read that it was a covenant of what? The overwhelming scourge will not reach us. We have made falsehood our refuge and concealed ourselves with deception. The covenant with death will be annulled, and your agreement shall not stand. You will be trampled down by it. A covenant of deception. A false covenant that is going to be extended to them is going to cause them to be trampled down by those that initiated it. Well, where is this covenant going to come from? What covenant am I talking about? In Daniel 11:21-24, in his place a despicable person will arise, a false prince of peace, on whom the honor of kingship has not been conferred, but he will come in a time of tranquility and seize the kingdom by what? Intrigue, or also deception, by deceiving. The overflowing forces will be flooded away before him and shattered, and also the prince of the covenant, which digs into some final time eschatological prophecies. After an alliance is made, a pact, a covenant with him, he will practice deception, and he will go up and gain power with a small force of people. In a time of tranquility, he will enter the richest parts of the realm, and he will accomplish what his fathers never did, nor his ancestors. He will distribute plunder, booty, and possessions among them, and he will devise his schemes against the strongholds, but only for a time. What time of tranquility? It's going to be the time during the false peace agreement that some man, as all of this is reeling and as the world is seeing that we're about to come to a point where all of a sudden we have Armageddon, the war that's going to end all wars, it's going to end the world. One man is going to arise and say, whoa, whoa, no, look, we can resolve this. Here is peace. You make an agreement, boom. And all of a sudden, this man is going to be able to do what people thought was truly impossible. He is going to establish a peace that will echo around the globe. It will be the first time people are going to be saying, whoa, it's amazing. And they're going to be worshiping him and bringing him up and praising him and empowering him. But it's going to be a false peace. And that's the very important thing we need to understand in 2 Thessalonians 2, when the man of lawlessness is revealed, when all are screaming peace and safety. No, that is when the terrible destruction will come upon you like pains in the night of a pregnant woman. Like, or labor pains. It is a false prince of peace is going to arise. And we read in Daniel 9:27, and he will make a firm covenant, a false peace agreement with the many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week, he will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering. And on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate, even until a complete destruction, one that is decreed, is poured out on the one who makes desolate. Now, as you start reading into this, you've got to take time to break it down. And this is what I was nervous about, not being able to dig into the full significance of these scriptures and prophecies for the final times. But what we're reading here is, again, there's going to be a reeling, okay? There's going to be tension building, a conflict around Israel and Jerusalem. In that, Israel defending itself is going to cause a rallying and a unification of the nations around under the banner of trying to destroy them. Israel is going to push too hard in Gaza and create a humanitarian crisis, which is going to further the goal of those for the unification. Well, all of a sudden, Israel, who I believe is nuclear powered, although they've never actually fully admitted it, and have this thing called the Samson Initiative, which they will wipe anyone off of the face of the earth who wipes them off the face of the earth. There's going to come this standoff, and everyone's going to see, with all the involvement of the other superpowers, that this is about to ignite a world war that will end everything. And one man at that time that it was prophesied is going to stand up and present a peace agreement, and it will be known as a holy covenant, because in that, it's actually going to restore right for the Jews to access the Temple Mount and to be able to pray up there. That is a conversation for another time. Jews are not even allowed to pray from the Temple Mount, which is why they go to the Western Wailing Wall. Okay? So that's where we at. And he will make this firm covenant with them, this holy covenant, this false covenant of peace with them. And that's going to start the 70th week of Daniel. Now, talking about the gap between the 69th and the 70th week is one we'll have to discuss at another time. We get our answers from Micah, from Hosea, from Daniel. But we'll have to do a 4-part series on the actual final times. But for the sake of where we are, I want you to understand, when that week begins, there's going to be 3.5 years in the middle of the week, because as we mentioned in the Bethlehem episode, the way they write, 1 week is 7 years. So in the middle of that week, 3.5 years, he's going to go in and he's going to put a stop to the sacrifice that they're now able to make again as a result of that false peace covenant, that holy covenant. He's going to put a stop to that. And on the wings of abomination will come the one who makes desolate. The dragon, the devil himself, will be thrown down to earth. Forces from him will arise, desecrate the sanctuary fortress, and do away with the regular sacrifice. And they will set up the abomination of desolation. By smooth words, he will turn to the godless, those who act wickedly toward the covenant, but the people who know their God will display strength and take action, and those who have insight among them will give understanding to the many, yet they will fall by the sword and the flame. They will die, but by captivity and by plunder for many days. There's going to be a great tribulation that's going to take place during that time. Now, when they fall, they will be granted a little help, and many will join them by intrigue, curiosity, and by seeing. Some of those who have insight will fall in order to refine, to purge, to make them pure until the end time, because it is still to come at the appointed time. So there will be an abomination of desolation, which we read about in Daniel, on the wings of abomination when it comes. So in Matthew 24, and I'm giving you this again because I don't have time. I'm already way over my time limit for this episode. But I want you to understand why it's so important we understand what is taking place in Israel. Because in Matthew 24, Jesus himself said, therefore, when you see what? The abomination of desolation, when this false prince of peace who gets access to the whole kingdom, who moves himself in 3.5 years after that covenant and sets himself above God, as we'll discuss in another episode, which was spoken of through Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains. Whoever's on the housetop must not go down to get what's out of their house. Whoever in the field, not back for his cloak. Whoever's pregnant, woe to you in nursing babies in those days. But pray your flight will not be in the winter or on the Sabbath, for then there will be a great tribulation, such as not occurred since the beginning of the world till now, nor ever will. Unless those days had been cut short, no life would have been saved, but for the sake of the elect, the eklektos of God, us, those days will be cut short. And false Christ and false prophets will arise, and they will work great signs and wonders so as to mislead even the elect. But I've told you in advance. And immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give us light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of heaven will be shaken. And the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. And then he will send his angels with a great trumpet. They will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the sky to the other. When? Immediately after the tribulation of those days. Listen, this episode isn't on the Great Tribulation. This episode honestly isn't even on the abomination of desolation. I need far more time than I have to truly dig into this topic and to teach you about it. But the reason I wanted to include it is because when you take what's taking place in Israel, and you can join that with all of the other completed prophecies that we see at our time, that Israel was reestablished as a nation, that the gospel would be preached to the entire world before the end times would come, as Jesus said, which through the internet the gospel has reached. The earthquakes, the storms, the apostasy of the church, the men being lovers of pleasure and lovers of self, everything we read in 2 Timothy 3, when you see all of the information, the Micah Hosea timeline, the Holy Week of God, it all comes to this same point and moment. And this with Israel is the sign, because none of the end could take place until this abomination of desolation takes place. But the abomination of desolation, the 70th week of Daniel, cannot take place until what? Until that unholy, or the holy, quote unquote, until the false covenant that Israel was instructed they should never make is established. And we already know through the Abraham Accords that they were working with the UAE, with Bahrain, with Sudan, with other nations, and Morocco, that they're already willing to sign a covenant and peace agreement. So how much more when everybody's united together, and then all of a sudden, all of these nations, they have to enter into a covenant and an agreement with them at the exact same time. From that time, start counting. And know, although if you want to talk pre-trib, post-trib, rapture, read what we just read in Matthew 24. Read Revelation 7, and we can do another episode on it. But I just want you to be ready and aware, knowing the day in which we live, and understanding that although we're not quite there yet, we all need to be paying attention very closely to what is taking place to our brothers in Israel, to what is taking place there in the Middle East. Because this that started on Saturday could very well be the first step of moving us towards the beginning of that 70th week, which is the beginning of the end. Hopefully all of that. I've tried to jumble it together. I've tried to share it real quick. If you want to learn more about the eschatology and what it's truly going to look like before the Lord's return, after the Lord's return, the millennial reign of Christ, the millennial temple, the new heaven, new Jerusalem, new earth, we'll get into all of that in other episodes. And I encourage you to follow us, subscribe to us, and to watch those. But for now, be praying for Israel. Read over what I've given you. Read over the scripture so you can see for yourself, and be aware and ready that if we see that covenant made, the abomination of desolation is coming, and we all must prepare, because we will be here during that tribulation, and we will still have a role and responsibility to serve as the body of Christ. I'll tell you about that in other episodes. God bless you. We love you. See you around.